All right, it's 510 Mother's Day, 502. About 65 in Geneva, very sunny, still kind of cold. We're moving in from the bloom period and going into petal fall in a lot of the places. If you're still in Maine, New Hampshire, you're going to be seeing a lot of bloom for a while. It's going to hang on for a bit. And we need to watch it very carefully because even though fire blight is of no concern right now because it's just too cold for it, we have to watch that last push where that does finally start to warm up in the end of May and we start to go into petal fall. Once that transitionary period from bloom to petal fall, the flowers are very susceptible to that particular point. You've got wounds and you got a little more heat, and you may even be able to be thinning into it as tissues begin to die. These things can kind of surge fire blight bacteria. But in terms of fungicides, we're going to be moving into an area where we have a lot of rain. I'm going to recommend this group 711s, 3s, and 52s because they're really good on the cedar apple rust, the powdery mildew, and the apple blotch Marsanita complex. Well, it's the same organism, it's diplocarpin, and unfortunately it was erroneously named Marsanina early on. That's why it's better to name them after the symptom, like apple blotch. Because when the names change, and the growers and I don't really concerned about what the actual name of the pathogen is, but we need to keep those disease names common. We shouldn't name them after a name that they're the organism that doesn't exist. So anyway, with that, let's jump in and we'll talk a little bit about what the best options are. We're moved away from the Sillet, the Vanguard, and the Scala, and we're really going to be focused on groups 11s. Really good for powdery mildew. I'm going to recommend looking into this group as well. Many of the 11s come in a 7-11 combo. You can start to see that if I've added a group after another product name, like Luna Sensation, it has a group 7-11. That one and Maravon are particularly good, really powerful against scab and mildew and summer disease. Teceris is the 7 all by itself. It's also pretty good against mildew as well. Fairly strong. Miravis, Aprovia, very strong on apple scab to an almost disturbing extent. So if you have high scab only, select those. The group 3 fungicides, Sevia is particularly good against a lot of them. They're really going to shine on rust. They can also do mildew. The more soluble the AI is. Rallium and Rally are fairly strong against mildew, less strong against scab for the most part. So you can kind of pick your groups that way. But for the most part, they're all going to work pretty well on the diseases that we're struggling with now. We're going to be creeping into the summer diseases soon because the inoculum is flying now, and that'll be present a little bit later. But we could control a lot of it now by going early at petal fall and first cover as we're moving into it. The only other one to add in this particular case is the Axios, or checking it out, looking into what it might be like for post-infection. Right now, I've only been testing it in the protect it mode, and I'm looking at mildew data as well. I want to get into a really nasty mildew plot. I've had it in there, it did seem to do pretty well, so I'd like to get a little more mildew data. I'd love to know what it would do for summer disease, but I think it's limited in its application scope in the early part of the season. So as we're moving into petal fall and second cover, if you get the big rains, I'll recommend a couple of these. Some places are still coming off of a massive event, and there's a pretty chunky one coming up as well, or 5 days or inches of rain. We're moving into a period where the models won't predict ascospore ejection anymore, but I'll set it back a little bit in terms of its green tip date, so it'll give us some rough estimations of what it would be like in terms of magnitude. It doesn't mean you're blasting 20% of the ascospores off into the sky, but it does give you an indication of how favorable it is for ejection if we trick the system and set our green tip date closer to now so that it thinks there's more apple scab spores. But and depending on what you want to really focus on in your area, all of them are pretty good against scab. The other ones, particularly the 7s, are really strong on scab. They're probably your strongest scab option. 11s are amazing on mildew, and the 3s, like Sevia, are really good on cedar apple rust. Your mancozeb as well, if you're allowed to use it or can still use it, is going to be fantastic on rusts as well. If you have them. Also, we're moving into the period where we're going to be able to get the apple blotch, as I mentioned earlier. It's actually called diplocarpin. Marsanina is the old name for it. And all the initial inoculum for fly speck, sooty blotch, and other rots will start flying around petal fall. Good time to take care of these with these fancier fungicides. And if it's a light period with not a lot of rain, stick to just Cap 10 mancozeb. You got a couple more weeks, I hope, before mancozeb use is gone. Remember, in the pre-harvest interval of like 77 days or something really awful. And then if it's another light period, you can use a biological. And in the organic world, I do like the Oso and the Howler. As in this is a powder, they work particularly well if you get them nicely mixed up. Do a little pre-mixing and then dump it in your tank and into a larger jug or in little bits of water. It just makes it work better than all leaves. Ozo's a liquid; it's going to fly right out. Another nice organic antibiotic option. And then if you're into the mildew world, if you have a lot of mildew-sensitive varieties, there's nothing that's better than sulfur. Never going to get resistance to it. Don't put it with oil. Don't use it with oil and slow drying conditions. You'll end up thinning your crop. And yeah, don't do that. But you can use it. Don't use it too hot. Don't use it too cold. That means like 32 and 85. We're not going to run into those temperatures. I think we're going to be stuck kind of in the 50s. Maybe in Maine you might see some freezing temperatures or close to it. So maybe stick with one of the others unless you have mildew. Less than 15. The liquid biopesticides are really a great bet. Stargus, Eagle Swing, there's so many different varieties and different ones. I just find that the liquids are much easier to use, having sprayed about 130 treatments over the last couple of days. Kind of burnt out on watching the powder come blowing right back at me from some of the newer experimentals that are still going in powder mode. If you can have a liquid formulation, it can't be beat. Even if it was weaker, the fact that you're getting all of it out of the tank and not in your face is an amazing development. I think it will help correct for any inherent efficacy differences amongst the products. And as we're moving into Fire Blight, we did a little pre-bloom peroxidine calcium. Now we're into you can use your systemic resistance inducers. Some of the best ones would be Actigard in this particular case. We're moving to a situation where I don't even think you're going to need to use antibiotics or biologicals for Fire Blight this year. Not yet, but what we could do is save all that money on bloom sprays for a strong defense inducer and perhexadione calcium program coming up at petal fall. We don't know what the weather is going to be like. It could be really hot. We need to watch Memorial Day because that's when Fire Blight likes to strike. And if you're in the organic world, we have a lot of natural SARs. You can put on your biologicals now. And then, of course, you can use your natural SARs in the spring and after the petal fall period to try to boost those internal defenses and get Fire Blight keep it from migrating into the tissues. The easy thing with the organic is the apples tend to be a little more low vigor because of the absence of synthetic fertilizers. In that particular case, Fire Blight already has a hard time infecting the tree. It likes really young, succulent, fast-growing trees that are being pushed to their limits. And if the tree is a little bit slower or under-fertilized or using a fertilizer that isn't as efficient, Fire Blight has very little chance. It might cause an infection, but it's not going to migrate through the trees in that same devastating manner. And so in that particular instance, low vigor trees, you'll be able to get away easily with using some of these alternative products in the organic world by merit of the system. I mean, the apples may not be as big, but your Fire Blight problem should be a little bit less, if you will. If you're in the conventional world, strep resistance is unheard of in the New England and I don't know about Wisconsin area. I would guess probably not present there at all. You can use 24 ounces per acre of the 17 or about 8 per acre if you have a Firewall 50 or a 50 formulation. Agromycin 17, so one of the 24 ounce per acre examples. You can put it with Regulate to get it a little bit in there. If you do start to see the yellowing around the edge of it, that's just referred to as strep burn. Doesn't really hurt your leaves, doesn't really cause any problems. Sometimes when I see the strep injury in my own crop using some Regulate and streptomycin, I know like, okay, good. I at least got the tissue well covered and a little bit of ingress into the tissue. Once it gets into the tissue, that's when the little burn occurs. You can use kasugamycin as well for that second or third. I just don't think you're going to need antibiotics this year in order to manage Fire Blight. In the organic world, Blossom Protect is still one of the strongest products that you can put out there. It is going to competitively inhibit Fire Blight getting into the cup and then turn on some defenses right around the spot where Fire Blight wants to begin its infection and lock it out. Bloom Time Live is coming out. It'll be a bacteria-based product. The nice thing about it shouldn't cause a lot of russeting. It's just not a russeting organism. And it should provide a similar level of competitive type control. You want to put these out earlier in the EIPs. Right now our EIPs are all 0, so why would you even bother? You want to get it on as the temperatures begin to rise to give these a little bit of time to build their populations, of course, and then you can reapply after a rain. And as we're moving into petal fall, these are sort of our standard recommendations. If you have larger trees or more vigorous trees, where I would recommend a prohexadione calcium program about 6 ounces per 100 gallons. Or if you have smaller high density trees that are moving, that you don't want to stunt, you want to slow them down a little bit, we recommend that 2+1 program, 2 ounces per 100 of the prohexadione calcium and 1 ounce per 100 of the Actigard. Do it at petal fall and 10 to 14 days later. As you're moving into it, make sure the trees are actively growing and stuff like that. I think you could probably wait a week before having to do with this, struggle that, but it'll thicken the cortical parenchyma of the cell walls and prevent that sort of systemic invasion of the tissues. The bacterium loves to grow with growing tissues, and if you slow them down, particularly when it has an opportunity to infect in this sort of hot, dry weather after bloom, I don't know if it'll be dry or not, it's probably going to be rainy and cold at this point after petal fall, but we'll see. And it should just sort of stop the invasion. As the fire blight moves, it makes sort of a negative feedback loop. The more in death that is caused, it gets the bacteria more excited, and they'll invade and rot even faster. And if the tissues are growing, it's just like shooting nutrients right into them, and then they keep multiplying and killing as they spread through the vascular tissue as well. But what we want to do is keep the trees a little bit slow, and if they're not moving much, you probably don't need to do it. But we should watch the weather around Memorial Day and see what's going on with that. And if you're an organic, Regalia Lifeguard work pretty well as well. They're not going to thicken cell walls or change dramatic features of the plants, but they will turn on resistance. It's particularly in the smaller trees, definitely good to use them in there. Usually petal fall 10 to 14 days. And if you really had a highly susceptible variety, I'd maybe do it at 21 days as well. They'll sort of get the defenses inside rolling to try to slow down any migration of fire blight that takes a hold. And then, of course, if you have rat tail bloom and you have non-russeting varieties, you could put out the Blossom Protect. I think we should wait and see what it looks like at full-on petal fall. I don't think you need to worry about this right now. Particularly, russeting can be pretty high in slow, cold, drying weather. So even if you're in rat tail, I would say you don't really need to manage fire blight at all. And I wouldn't really do it. But for the rest of the areas that might be coming into warm weather as their blossom period finishes, we'll watch this and see. And if it gets really hot and there's still some flowers on it, go ahead. You can use it. After petal fall, you're not allowed to use it because of fears of russeting. But I've used it a bunch, even in cold, wet weather on Gala and some other high russeting varieties, and you're generally going to be fine. So if you have a little bit of bloom left, you could probably use it. But let's be safe and watch the conditions. With that, let's go ahead and start our long forecast. Back into Killingsworth. What do we got this week? For Scab, you're looking at you're at the end of Scab, 95, 98. The rest of your ascospores are shooting. You'll move into the all of them gone period soon. They're shooting right now, apparently, as I speak. It must be raining there, or you're coming down from the rain. If you haven't applied in a while, you haven't really received an inch of rain, so it won't really wash everything off. You do get a break, and then you're coming back into another 15% as well. And this is the time I'd recommend use one of the single sites. Come in tomorrow, come in the next day, either one, and hit it hard with maybe a 7-11 to get rid of scab and mildew, or a group 3 like Sevia. If you have cedar apple rust, put that right on there. It'll grab anything that came back. It says there wasn't an infection event, but you had a lot of ejection. So what that means is it probably was too cold with all the leaf wetness you had to cause the infection. Still would make me nervous because a slight change in your actual weather versus what this system is predicting could lead to trouble. So I think I'd do that. Fire blight, whatever. It's easy. This is supposed to get to 100, just in case anyone wants to know, and then turn blood red. We're not seeing any of that. So probably as we move through the New England areas, we're just not really going to be seeing a lot of fire blight stores. What it look like? Same sort of thing. Yeah, in this other area of Connecticut, we are getting enough temperatures, high enough, with enough rain. It looks like 8 inches of rain. Jeez, that washed everything off. Yeah, I would come back in with one of your single sites and get ready for the summer and the end of Scab. No point in flinching now. Give it the 7-11, give it the Group 3, the Sevia, the Marathon. Any one of these types of options would do. You can keep covering with Captain Mancozeb if you want, but if you're concerned that something creeped through, those single sites have the best opportunity to grab a little bit of post-infection and make sure that you're protected for the week. And suspect fire blight is don't worry about it. And clicking, and it's a don't worry about it. Yep. Let's go ahead into Massachusetts. Check the Belchertons out. Southwatch, gross. Don't worry about fire blight there. I'm going to check the other Belcherton and Massachusetts. It says do not worry about fire blight whatsoever. You're getting 5% EIP. It doesn't matter what model you use. It'd be hard to get fire blight infection. I had to do my fire blight trials already in Geneva, and because the flowers are falling off. And probably going to be an easy year for a lot of the products to just squish, even me dumping inoculum on it. Let's check out the Scab for it. Same situation as the Connecticut. You're coming in with an ejection event and enough heat to actually get in, half an inch of rain. So that probably washed everything off. And you got a long period of rain coming up. It's hard to tell how many inches you'll have, but you're looking at about 40 hours, and the last puff of 10% apple scab spore ejection, I'd come in here and crush it like we talked about Connecticut. Let's check some of the other ones here. Same situation. That's right. Come in tomorrow or the next day. Put on a good material, single site fungicide. 7-11, 11 if you have mildew, Sevia, or if you have cedar apple rust. And the 7s are excellent against apple scab. We went through the table of all those already. It's time, so it should be pretty easy. Moving our way through Maine, same situation. You're at the end, and we're going to keep running. And there's no need to actually set back the green tip and see how intense the magnitude is. This place seems to think you don't have much maturity. I think something's broken with that station. Yeah, it is actually picking up on the 10th, even though you can see the calendar's glitched and broken and saying it's the 6th. Still giving us the right predictions. Same types of things we'd recommend. I'm a little concerned about that maturity. It's weird. I'm going to see if it fixes itself if I change the date. It absolutely doesn't do anything. Something seems off with that station, but it is picking up on the weather. I'm almost wondering if it's broken in NUA. Interesting. Yep, come in 7-11, clean this up, deal with that, and you should be in good shape. I'll check fire blight for that area right there. Whatever. Yeah. I mean, I don't even... It looks like you came off of a pretty high period on May 8th. Did you have water? Let's take a look. May 8th, you didn't have a lot of water, but you had it on the 9th. You could have creeped something there, but for the most part, the two models are very different. This one requires an average temperature over 65, and so it was not really hitting that, probably because of cold spikes. And so you probably didn't need to worry about it, even if the cougar blight did try to freak you out a little bit. On this particular location, no. I mean, it got almost warm enough on the 8th, and it's really nothing to worry about. I'm more worried about scab in this particular area. Time and season. It's going to be another rainy one. You had another half an inch of rain in Sandusfield, coming into a lot more wetness and cold temperatures, enough to trigger the infection event, and you're right there at the end. I'd say crush it with a 7-11 or Group 3 single site fungicide and pick up some extra inoculum control for some of the other things. Anything different about East Bridgewater today? Nope, same awful situation, same as all the areas. The whole Massachusetts is experiencing the exact same rain and maturity. Looks like you had a bigger ejection on the 9th coming in there. You can clean that up with any of the single site fungicides. They're not really marketed anymore for kickback, but you're not truly using any of that. You're taking advantage of what kickback it has on the 11th and then protecting against the stuff coming up on the 13th, 14th, and 15th. If this is what it looked like in Geneva, I'd be doing the same type of thing. And let's see. Let's check East Bridgewater for fire blight. I mean, there's going to be nothing there. I imagine it's just a joke. Yep. Oh, he almost had a blip on the 10th. But nothing even predicted further up. With all the rain, it's just too darn cold for fire blight. Richmond, Massachusetts, easy. And Scab, I suspect it's going to look a lot like we've already seen. Yep, same sort of thing. Yep, 7-11, 3. 3 if you have rust, 11 if you have mildew, and 7-11 if you have mildew and scab that are typically causing you trouble. Go to Stowe. Stowe, Massachusetts. Another little bit less rain recorded. Same situation as before. A lot of ejection. Add it all up, it's about 20. So if you haven't applied in a while, put something on tomorrow, the next day, clean that up. the single sites and then move forward. Let's take a look at stove for fire blight. Almost seemed pointless to even click on it. No, nothing to worry about. Even that high isn't even enough. I could even make fire blight, in fact, under these conditions. I'd really have to try to stuff it in the crop and hope for the best. South Deerfield. And that's me using a lot of inoculum. Nothing to worry, nothing to stress out about. It's kind of scary to see a 248 when you've only seen like 23s, but it gets a lot higher. You need to see it in like the 410s. And then it also needs to match up with the EIP infection potential because we're just getting these cold nights that are stopping the fire blight from going. And so there, we'll try here as well. Come on, there we go. South Deerfield, Massachusetts. Gross, even one of the worst ones. It's just constantly been raining. You got 2 days tomorrow to try to get rid of the end of the scab season, and we're going to continue to look. I feel like this is going to be a tough season for scab. Use your single sites. Pick the ones based on the charts at the beginning, and we'll go from there. Let's go in New Hampshire. I feel like if anything, I'm probably not even going to run fire blight stuff for that. Same thing. Same as Massachusetts. Hollis is getting hammered. Single site fungicide, come in, clean up whatever was left over, and protect against the big 10% at the end. And then it's group 3s. If you have rusts, put a group 3 with Mancozeb. You get double the rust control. Mancozeb is quite good against rust. 7-Elevens for scab, mildew. The group 3 will also do scab. It's just that you're sort of picking the one with its extra bonus features. The group 3s are also very good against summer diseases. Most of the single sites are, and that's why we're saving them. So if you're in Hollis, that's what I would go with. Hollis, I'm just going to punch a 1 or 2 up in New Hampshire, but we're not really concerned about that. We'll watch it later on as we move into, at one point it's going to get hot. Brentwood didn't actually get hot enough to get that scab infection over the weekend. You can kind of proceed with ease into the next one. You could use the Cap 10 Mancozeb here. It's not as intense if you didn't get it. If you feel like you had microclimate changes, then you could go in and put one of the single sites on, but you could save your single sites for later when it's really intense. Anything with fire blight? Nope. Not there. I think we'll just we'll be moving on. We'll just look at scab from this point on in New Hampshire. Same situation as Massachusetts. You had an infection period. It ejected about 13 to 15. You got another 13 coming up. I'm saying go single site all the way with those ones in the thing. If you put a protectant with it, it's going to get even easier. Same with Apple Hill. Even more rain there. I definitely feel single site in this area. Come in there. Get that 7-Eleven on there. Get that Group 3 fungicide. Inspire Super. It's cold enough. Probably even get a little bit more out of your Inspire Super combo out of the Scala component or Vanguard component in there. That Group 9. And that'll probably do pretty well. Plainfield, New Hampshire. What are we looking at? Geez, you got barely a little bit of time. You could probably spray on the 12th as well. Not a big wash off, but you do get a slight break, and then it picks back up again with a lot of rain for the rest of the week with that infection coming on the 13th. I'd probably use a single site in this particular instance. And we'll check fire blight and Plainfield just for fun. And it's a silly fun. Going to Bangor, Maine. And then I'm not even going to look at fire blight there. It doesn't even have bloom. It's like, whatever. And usually if you don't even have bloom, it's been so cold, you're really never going to see anything. We'll leave Maine alone for fire blight, and we'll just look at scab today. It's just going to be easy. You've just been given a gift of no fire blight. What's it look like? Ugh, it's gross. Same as New Hampshire, you got a huge period of rain coming. You got a break and then another one. And you're not really washing off all the fungicides. You could probably skirt through this with a bunch of protectants, but I'd go ahead and use one of my single sites now. We're getting along in the season that you could use that 7-Eleven for scab mildew, Group 3 for scab, cedar apple rust, and summer disease. Any one of the options would do you just fine there. I suspect we're going to see a lot of the same stuff as we move through the list. Let's see, Augusta, same thing. Yep, same recommendation for Augusta. Do we need to worry about fire blight? Probably not. We'll be looking at fire blight predictions later, I think, for those particular areas in Maine. Milton, New Hampshire. Probably going to be very similar to everything we have seen. Oh, it's down. It's broken. Wow. Well, I'm sorry, Milton, New Hampshire. You're out. It's just gone. Well, I don't know. I guess something came, a storm swept it away. Let's look at Lewiston. Same thing. You got a little bit of time before the rain picks back up. I'd single site this one. You take advantage of what little kickback these things provide, and then protect going on forward into the week. Monmouth, let's see. Yeah, it's just a very large system must be moving through that's covering the state. You're not getting a complete wash off, but you could recover, or I'd use it maybe one of my single sites. Now, it's a 19. It's a pretty chunky one. Yeah, I would go through with my group 7-11s, 3s, any one of those. Just use one of them, don't use two. And yeah, let's go see what Wisconsin will be doing. I definitely, you never know what you're going to get with Wisconsin. And you got a 13 coming up on the 12th. I don't know. You could go either way. If you're deep after Petalfall, you can use one of your single sites up. Could you probably weather this with a Captan Mancozeb? Yeah, I think you could use Captan Mancozeb or Sulfur if you're organic. If I was organic and I had this much ejection, I think I'd go ahead and get it with a good Sulfur instead of using one of the biologicals there. Since we actually have heat there, let's go check a look and see what Fire Blight looks like. Gross. Still don't worry about it. We're really 27. It says high. You're just triggered that because you've got water, some heat, but you're not going to get infection because I suspect you have low nighttime temperatures on, what was this day that tries to tell you something, the 12th. Yeah, you got rain, so that's what it is. But you're not even really getting that average temp of 65, and that's why even for a day it's not even strong enough to do anything. Let's check out Mills. All right. It's like not even a bloom, whatever, is what the thing says. Make it bloom. See what it says. Hey, look, you almost get over on the 15th. It might get hot enough there to do something. You got your average temperature. Where it's not triggering the other model is the fact that we're not getting water. So if you get precipitation on May 15th, you would have enough to barely trigger a fire blight infection period. I'd watch it, come back later and see if it switches. If you get water, you might get enough heat to actually matter. But I really would be unconcerned. If you've got something on there, you're going to be fine. You might not even have bloom, according to this chart. Don't worry about it in pars. And where was our other? We got to go back and check a couple others here. Let's check out Mills, how they're doing. The thing with Wisconsin is just a grab bag of different stuff. It's like this place is easy. Interesting. It says it's over. I'm gonna move your green tip a bit so we can sort of take a peek at what the magnitude is. There's not a lot of rain there. I think you're fine. Fire blight you need to worry about the most. Let's check out pars. How are they doing? A little bit coming up. I would just maintain coverage with a protectant for this sort of nonsense. You already had a hard enough time. It's not that big of an injection event. Captain Mancos, that will do. Already did fire blight. Don't worry about it. Let's check out Rochester. And here we are. Apple Scab, pretty easy streets. Yeah, you could just maintain this with coverage. If you have enough coverage from the week before, it's not washed off, you could probably weather this. Particularly if you put on a material around 7 or 8. We need to worry about? You never know. States are different. Nope. Won't worry about fire blight. It's just not even a thing this year for the most part. We almost were able to see something. And one location out of all of them. Let's see what's Apple Scab look like. Another easy week. You could just maintain your coverage. It is a 17% ejection. If you have trouble with mildew or cedar apple rust, you can use a group 3 for rust and a 7-11 for mildew, and that's about it. I think you're really going to manage. You can manage this with your protectants, but we will try and see if there's anything. Yep, you got a little bit of fire blight coming, and why it's not triggering the infection. Watch the end of the week, particularly in Wisconsin, and make sure you're not getting rain. If it actually hits rain, you could get an infection. So you could definitely use your Blossom Protect coming into this, or you could use a strep, or probably could beat this with a biological, I would say, given the low chance. Now, all this needs to do in order to finally trigger the big blood red would be to get a little bit of rain, and there's a 57% chance. So even a high dew might do it. So be a little careful in this situation with fire blight there. And then we'll go finish up with Verona, Wisconsin. And you got a little bit of rain, a little bit. You could maintain this. Just the protectants, fungicide should do it. You could probably squeeze the one in. It's only an hour of humidity on the 10th. Between today and tomorrow, you could probably get one in and cover if you need to, but it's not really washed anything off, so you could probably weather through that. And Fire Blight, Verona. Not too much of a concern. It's still a little cold there. You're starting to almost get the average temperature over 65, but it's not pushing it yet. All right, that's enough of that. Check for those places that do have a potential fire blight infection period in Wisconsin at the end of the week. Watch that water and see if it rains. If it does, you could end up triggering an infection event. So if you get close and you don't want to chance it, yeah, put something on. And if not, don't worry about it. For everywhere else in the areas, do not worry about it. All right, well, we'll see you next week. Have a great week.